But yeah, maybe do.
Mr. Collins.
You turn it over to me for the election. You vote and then go through it, then you get into conversation.
No, that worries me.
You took yours off. Are we gonna leave them on or put them off, or what are we gonna do?
Gotta put it on.
And if there's nobody elected on the first,
Somebody else
that's understanding.
write your ugly letter.
I know.
Me.
Ed, you just work like hell, we get humor out of that, but it just don't work. It just don't work. You got to find something.
It's, here.
You got to find something.
So I didn't know.
Okay. All right, Commissioner. Is it that time?
Joel,
Let's see.
Joel,
Okay, here you
See what Steve.
Joel, we're recording. I just wanted you to know.
All right. I'd like to call Sampson County Board of Commissioners to order. Recognize Vice Chair Sue Lee.
At this time, Susan Holder will have our invocation.
Yes, ma'am. Would you pray with me, please? Lord, light of the world, in this season of innumerable blessings, we ask more blessings. We ask that you allow us to see this world as you would see it. We ask you to grant us peace in this uneasy time, in this disquiet. Please quiet our minds and our hearts so that we can hear your voice. We ask you also to give us growing joy in this Advent season. Calm our anxious minds and allow us to enjoy this season. We ask you to kindle in our hearts the love of the Advent season, so we can show your love to our fellow man in our actions, our words, our deeds, and our acts of charity during the season. We ask you, Lord, lastly, to give us the hope that is found in the greatest gift, your Son. Now we ask that you lead, guide, and direct everything that we do so that it will be to the service of our citizens and to your glory. Amen.
Thank you. And at this time, our favorite veteran, Commissioner Godwin, will lead us in the pledge.
Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow, let us remember Pearl Harbor Day. It started World War II, just in remembrance.
Thank you. This time, I recognize Honorable Ed Causey for board reorganization.
Mr. Chairman, it's my pleasure to do this, and what we're going to do in just a moment, I'm going to call for nominations for board chairman. If there is more than one, then we will vote on the nominations in the order that have been received. So if somebody was nominated first, they will be voted first. If for some reason there's not a majority at the end of the first round, we're going to let the attorney tell us what our options are for proceeding forward. In any circumstance, once we elect a chairman, we will then turn the proceedings over to the new chairperson. And that person will then proceed to accept nominations for vice chair, and then we will proceed with our meeting and consider the board to be organized, okay? If there are no questions, then what I am going to do is open the floor for nominations for board chairman.
Mr. Causey, it's an honor and a privilege for me to nominate Sue Lee for chair.
Okay, are there other nominations? If not, could I see a vote of everyone to accept Ms. Sue by acclamation? Okay, congratulations, Ms. Chairperson. And we'll now let you move into the other chair and proceed with the meeting.
You gonna carry this?
Scoot over.
All right.
Thank Thank you. Thank you so much for your confidence in me. At this time, I will accept nominations for vice chair, and I would like to nominate Gerald Kivett, Commissioner Kivett, for vice chair. If there are no other nominees, could we have a vote? All in favor? We're gonna play hopscotch here, for basket turnover. And let me say thank you very much for your confidence that you placed in me. Doesn't matter what you call me, I'm be vice chairman, that will be fine. Anything is vice chairperson, whatever you call me, that doesn't make any difference. But as the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 12, I'm gonna loosely quote this, every part of the body is important. If it was all one big eye, all we would do is hear. If it was all one ear, all we would do is hear. But it takes the 5 of us to make a whole body. We are worker bees up here. We work really hard. I appreciate all of you. I really appreciate your service for the past few years. You've done a good job, put a lot of hard work in it, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
May I say something?
sure.
I'd also like to thank the board for selecting me as vice chair. I certainly have big shoes to fill, and I'll do my best. But I also want to commend the entire board, but especially Chairman Wooten and Vice Chair Lee for the service they've had, the time they put in, the effort they put in. And it's not as easy as any of us think. I thought it was a little different than what it is, but it requires a lot of work and a lot of time, 7 days a week. And I appreciate what you've done, Chairman Wooten and Vice Chair Lee, and I look forward to serving and doing what I can to help.
Thank you, Commissioner, or Vice Chair Kivett, thank you. Looking in all that shuffle, I left my water. I think if we get my water here, I'll be good. No, I think I got a pen. I don't even have a pen.
I took it.
It's all good.
Okay, we'll move forward now. At this time, Mr. Causey will give us an update on the status of the audit.
Madam Chair, the audit is not complete, but it has begun, and based on where I was a week or so ago, that is actually good news. To give you a little background, the audit should have been done, quite frankly, and should have been completed, and it just has not. At one point in the last couple of months, we were a little concerned that we were not getting the communications coming back that we should have. However, I will give Mr. Green credit. I think, David, if I understand it correctly, we were going to start right after Thanksgiving or right before, and he had a brother to pass away, and so that has created somewhat of a distraction. We have had some challenges in the last few years of getting the audit started because of the timeframes and the information that people have to gather. However, this particular firm has a good reputation of basically, David, completing the audit requirements in the time frame they tell us.
Yes.
And he pretty much assures us that he will have the audit completed by the end of December and will be here for the January board meeting to make the presentation. Probably will not have been submitted and approved to LGC at that time, but he will have, he will have essentially completed and submitted by that time.
Thank you for that update. Okay, Austin Brinkley, our senior planner, will come up. We have to open
All 3 of them are here. Yes, ma'am.
the public hearing. This is on the I-40 corridor rezoning, and Austin will tell us all about it.
Good evening, Chairperson Lee and Board. The first item on the agenda tonight, as far as planning is concerned, is the I-40 corridor rezoning. This is a rezoning that involves approximately 330 parcels. These parcels are located within 1,500 feet on either side of the I-40 corridor as it stretches through the county. The Planning Board heard this proposal at the November 8th meeting, and this is a proposal to rezone these 330 parcels from they're currently unzoned, and it's a proposal to have them included in the residential agricultural zoning district. A little background, whenever the county adopted zoning in 2004, these properties were not given a base zoning district. They were intended to be part of the highway corridor overlay district. There were never any standards developed for that. So the current situation is if a property owner wants to get a building permit or wants to use the land for something, that we're not able to issue zoning, so the property owner then has to go through the rezoning process. This is a staff-initiated proposal to go ahead and include these properties in the RA zoning district to eliminate that rezoning process for the property owner. These properties are served by county water in certain areas, and they're well in other areas, as well as individual septic systems. And the land use plan classifies this area as being within the rural residential category, as well as there's certain small portions in the commercial growth land use category. Due to the limited resources there and the size of this land use category, staff felt it was best to rezone these parcels in the RA zoning district. The planning board did vote unanimously 5-0 at their meeting to recommend approval of this rezoning, and that was based on its consistency with the land use plan. If there's any questions on this rezoning, I can answer them at this time.
Any questions? Does anyone in the audience have anything they want to add or ask about this? If not, we'll close this public hearing, and do I hear a motion?
I move we approve the resolution for rezoning as stated.
Second.
All in favor? We'll open a public hearing for the second item.
Yes, ma'am. The second item is a zoning ordinance text amendment. Again, this was heard by the planning board at their November the 8th meeting. This is a text amendment that staff has initiated to clarify the language regarding private family cemeteries, so there's more clarity and understanding for citizens on their options as far as what they're able to do whenever they wish to create a private family cemetery. The planning board voted 5-0 to recommend approval of this text amendment. They found that it was consistent with the goals and objectives of the land use plan. If there's any further questions on this text amendment, I can answer them at this time.
Any questions? Anyone in the audience have anything to add or ask? No, we'll close this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Does that mean that with the amendment, that some of the prior ones that already grandfathered in, would they be grandfathered in?
So anything that's already in existence is going to be either pre-existing conforming or pre-existing non-conforming, just depending on how it currently sits. But any kind of new change to the text is not going to have any effect on anything already in existence.
Madam Chairman, I need his name.
Can I get your name and address, please?
Jimmy Miller, Jimmy Miller.
Melvin, and your address?
Just,
Do you need his address?
that's fine, just his name is fine. Thank you.
We'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we receive those with necessary corrections at the beginning.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? So unanimous. Another public hearing?
Yes, ma'am. This is a text amendment to the subdivision ordinance. It contains 3 separate amendments throughout the ordinance. The first amendment is a proposal to revise the language that is in section 106D to separate that out into its own separate section. And that, the purpose of that amendment is to bring it into the main purpose and intent of General Statute 160D 802C. This text amendment will bring the language in the ordinance into compliance with the purpose and intent of that general statute. The second one is to add in language in the family division section. That language kind of, it goes hand in hand with the amendment that's proposed to the zoning ordinance with the family cemetery. It further describes the process for dividing the land for the creation of that family cemetery. And then the final one is, there's certain instances in the county where there's pre-existing parcels that are landlocked. They don't have any recorded easement for access on a map. So this is an amendment to include language for the recordation of a plat for the sole purpose of creating that easement, not dividing any land or anything, just providing an easement for access to an existing landlocked parcel. The planning board voted 5-0 unanimously to recommend approval of the text amendments based on the fact that they found they were consistent with the goals and objectives of the land use plan. If there's any questions, I can take them at this time.
Any questions? Anybody in the audience have any questions? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the amendment for the proposed text amendment.
Is there a second? All in favor? Shows unanimous. Thank you so much.
Thank
Austin.
you.
I really appreciate it. Okay, this is an exciting part for me. Worked really hard on the workforce development. I'll turn it over to Mr. Causey and Justin Hembray.
Madam Chair, I'm going to give just a minute of background, and then we're going to invite Mr. Hembry up to make comments and talk about why he is here. I think it would behoove us all to recognize the fact that Mr. Hembry is the new executive director. I guess we're over a year, but less than 2 years, I guess it is. And if we go backwards about 2 years, there was some concern as to whether we wanted to continue in the existing COG that we have, that we're in partnership with Harnett and Cumberland. And I think one of the good decisions everyone involved has made is to continue with that partnership. And so then we went out to hire a new executive director. And we were very fortunate to get Mr. Hembry. He comes from the West, and he was an executive director in the West. So not only does he come and offers a lot of leadership, but he brings forth a lot of experience when he's got here. And one of the first things he said was he wanted to increase the programs that the COG did and offer services across the board. For whatever reason, I think Cumberland County decided that they would like the COG to take over their workforce. And here in these discussions, you and I were at the meetings, and we said, well, Mr. Hembry, when you get far enough along with that, we might want to participate in that as well and include us. And I think we had some conversations with Chairman Wooten at the time of what was going on, and he did not discourage us from continuing to pursue that. So we have now come to the point that I think the COG is ready to proceed, and I think he can give you even more background and see if there is a resolution that you would be willing to pass to share the continuation of the work that has been done. So with that, I would turn it over to Mr. Hembry, and we are delighted to have you in Sampson County.
Thank you, Mr. Causey, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Glad to be here. And yeah, it seems like my first day was on December the 9th. It'll be 2 years ago. When is the 9th? This week, I guess. Next week, maybe. But it's gone by fast, and we, with the leadership of Chair Lady Lee and the rest of the folks on the board, we're moving in the right direction. And one of those areas is workforce development. I think that probably Chairwoman Lee and Ed will remember during the interview process that I went through, one of the questions came up about where is there potential low-hanging fruit that could expand services for the regional council and at the same time allow for the provision of services on the regional level that may be better for the three counties as a whole, as opposed to doing them individually or with some different makeup. And one of those examples that I noted was workforce development. Most workforce development boards across the state are housed in regional councils of government. Out of the 16 regional councils across the state, I think 14 of us now have workforce development departments and provide those services on a multi-county regional basis. So a little bit of background in terms of what's gone on here locally. We started conversations a little bit over a year ago with Cumberland County. And Cumberland County is one of the few workforce areas in the state that consists of only one county. And it's primarily the larger urban areas. Cumberland was obviously one. Durham, Wake is actually two now. Gaston, Mecklenburg, sort of those larger areas. And Cumberland was interested in transitioning their workforce development program, which was existing as a county department, over to the Council of Governments, really for two reasons. One, they felt that it fit in better with what we were trying to do on the three-county level in terms of economic and community development. And two, quite frankly, they felt that we were better poised to administer the large federal grant program, or you hear us refer to it as WIOA, the Workforce Innovation Opportunities Act, that we were better positioned to administer that grant and that funding than the county was. Not that the county certainly didn't have the capacity to do that, but we were experienced and had years of experience under our belt administering the Older Americans Act funding, some specific federal DOT funding, and other things. So we began that conversation. It took about 6 months and was quite a long process that we learned a lot. And effective June 1 of this year, Cumberland County transferred their workforce development functions over to the COG. And as Mr. Causey and Chairwoman Lee mentioned, that's when some informal conversations began at the board of directors level at the COG. What are the possibilities for us trying to come together and form a workforce development area that matches the boundaries of our three-county region? And we talked about that, and I think my first response, Ed, was, let me get this thing under our belt with Cumberland County, see how this works out, move forward. And I wanted to make sure that we could successfully transition Cumberland County's program into our shop before we started trying to take on other programs. And I think what we found several months into that transition, things were going well. I think we were effectively performing in the areas that Cumberland County wanted us to perform in, but more importantly, probably from a federal and state perspective, we were meeting all the guidelines that the federal and the state agencies lay out in terms of what we're supposed to be doing with these funds. So that's when the conversations kind of picked up a little bit about the possibility of forming a three-county workforce area that included Cumberland, Sampson, and Harnett County. So our three counties that are included in Mid-Carolina having that conversation. Currently, as you're aware, you are in the Triangle South Workforce Development Board area, which is a 5-county area that includes Lee, Chatham, Harnett, and Sampson. Well, it's a 4-county area: Lee, Chatham, Harnett, and Sampson. That program is currently administered. The grant administrator for that program is Central Community College. And they have made clear through this process and early on discussions that they would prefer not to be the administrator of the workforce program. And this has happened quite a bit across the state, because what community colleges have discovered is they are poised, or they do a really good job at delivering workforce development and training services, and would prefer not to be in the area of the actual administration of the programs. And so there were conversations that were had with the folks at Central Community College, and quite frankly, I didn't want to do anything that was going to step on the community college's toes, because they are a key partner in anything that we do in workforce development. That was confirmed, and at the same time, we had conversations with some of the folks here in Sampson County about the possibilities, and then engaged Harnett County to see if they were interested in forming a 3-county board. So fast forward to now, this morning, I was at the Harnett County Board of Commissioners meeting, and they adopted the same resolution that's in front of y'all tonight. Essentially what that resolution is a resolution of intent, saying that this is what we intend or would like to do. There's still a lot of work to do after that. So Harnett County has said that they're on board. They're interested in moving forward. I have a meeting on Thursday with the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners. It's anticipated they're going to take the same sort of action. The meeting on Thursday is actually an agenda meeting, but they're going to place it on their consent agenda for the meeting the following week. So what this resolution of intent says is basically three things. One, that Sampson County is interested in joining a coalition of workforce development board that's made up of the three counties in the Mid-Carolina region. Two, that the county would like for Mid-Carolina Regional Council to be the administrator, the grant administrator for that workforce development area. And three, that the county will cooperate with Harnett and Cumberland counties along with the community college and Mid-Carolina as we move forward in this process. So one of the questions I got this morning from the Harnett County Board, which is a really good question, is assuming that the board passes this, what will the next steps be? What does this mean? So we will, once all the counties are in agreement through showing their intent to join this coalition, we will inform the Division of Workforce Solutions, which is in the Department of Commerce with the state, that it is the intent of the local governing boards to form this workforce area. And then is when the actual transition work will start. So what will happen, and I have to be careful the way that I describe this because I've heard some people describe it as a transition, some as a merger or consolidation. But really what it is the formation of a brand new workforce development area. So it's not like Sampson County and Harnett County are being pulled in and becoming part of Cumberland County's program. This is the formation of a brand new workforce area. And the first step in that will be drafting and negotiating amongst the three boards of county commissioners what the state refers to as a consortium agreement. So each county would enter into a consortium agreement, much like an interlocal agreement, that dictates what the governing structure will be for the new Workforce Development Board, what the rotation of the chief elected official will be. The federal law requires that there be a chief elected official that's responsible for the workforce program in each workforce area. Most places what happens is that official rotates each year between the number of counties. It's normally the chairman of the board, so there's a direct link to the elected officials. It will outline specifics about the administrative agency, Mid-Carolina Council of Governments, what we're responsible for, what reporting requirements there are to both the Board of Commissioners, and also how we work with y'all to appoint members to the Regional Workforce Board. So it begins outlining a lot of details in terms of the way that this will come together. At the same time, what we're going to be doing at the staff level of the council, assuming that all the counties agree to this, is we will start working on budget projections, budget development, what will the budget look like for this new area, and then a staffing plan. How will the new area be staffed, and where will those staff be deployed to? Obviously, we would be going from there being one career center that we're overseeing right now in Cumberland County to multiple career centers across the region. We're going to have to work through those things. And I will say that there is no anticipation and there's no expectation that there will be any decrease in services through that. In fact, it will potentially be the opposite because you're becoming more efficient with what the administrative costs are, particularly coming in with a county as large with a population like Cumberland County. That can help reduce the amount of administrative cost and hopefully direct more funds to actual service provision through this. So there's still a lot of work to be done. We've come a long ways, but it's anticipated that all of this will take place between now and July 1 of 2022. And July 1 of 2022, the beginning of the next fiscal year, is when this transition would actually become official. So that's our goal, and that's what we're working towards. One thing that I will note, just so y'all know, the folks at Central Community College and Triangle South Workforce Board have been really good to work with through this. It's truly been a partnership. And what we were able to do was to negotiate with Lee and Chatham County are actually going to be joining their neighbors to the north at capital area workforce area. So they would be merging in with Wake and Johnston County. Obviously, Sampson and Harnett will be coming in with Cumberland for us to form this 3-county board down here. And I think I've covered everything, but if anybody's got any questions, I'll be glad to answer. If I don't know that, I'll be glad to get the answer.
For clarity, you stated that the chief effective officer would be elected each year. How would you get consistency in
Normally, each workforce board does it a little different. For instance, when I was up at Land of Sky, that was a 4-county workforce area. And when the consortium agreement was originally written, what it said was the elected officials would rotate amongst each county, starting with the first county in alphabetical order. So the first year of the agreement, Buncombe County's chairman of the board was the chief elected official, and then the next year it was Henderson County's, and then Madison, Transylvania, and then started the rotation again. Some areas in the state leave that open to elected officials. Some places, just depending upon how it works and how the agreement goes, the chief elected official, whoever is selected when the consortium agreement is entered into, remains the chief elected official until they say, or the other chief elected officials say, hey, it's time to rotate. So there's a lot of different options there. The federal law doesn't dictate specifically how that's set up. Most places that have been successful with that have some sort of rotation. And sometimes it can be, hey, it's going to be you serve a 3-year term we call it the Clio, or it could be a 2-year or 1 year. There's a lot of flexibility with that.
Any other questions? So I am happy to move that, to adopt a draft resolution of support to create and join the new workforce development area. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Shows unanimous.
Thank you,
so
Madam
much,
Chair.
Justin.
Thank you,
I really
Commissioners.
appreciate all your hard work.
We appreciate it,
I'm really
absolutely.
excited
And I
about
brought
this.
some, I'm not gonna take up any, but two things real quick. One of the goals when I came on board was to rebrand the council. And, I've got there's some swag over here in the box with our new logo and our new, name, which now we're referring to ourselves as Mid-Carolina Regional Council. And Friday was the first day for our new Director of Local Government Services. We've established a brand-new department that's going to roll out services to our local governments and really meet some of the goals the board had when I was hired with this. And so be looking for us. I'd like to come over and introduce Samantha to y'all when we get a chance. She's going to be in Turkey tomorrow, actually.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
Okay, at this time, we'll move on, Mr. Causey, to give a report on the appropriations included in the newly approved state budget and consider actions related to the use of the funds.
Madam Chair, I will endeavor to be brief. However, this is what we call down south one of the funner things we get to talk about. Basically, what Mrs. Holder's done a good job of preparing it in the state budget. What we have, monies coming to Sampson County that are not tied to any loan. In just this portion of the budget comes to $22,616,389, and we are delighted with that. Make it clear, county administration was not involved with some of the municipality funding. For example, the municipal appropriations down at the bottom and the miscellaneous other projects, we were not directly involved in the acquisition of those funds. I do not want I want to make it clear, we're not trying to take credit for anything for which we did not participate on. That basically leaves about $18 million plus or minus, and if you add the other $12 million that we've got through the ARPA funds, that gives us about $30 million to expend on improvements over the next couple of years. We had appropriated $2 million of that money to go for broadband. So now we're in the area of trying to formulate how we want to move forward. And keep in mind, we've got state funding and we've got federal funding, David, from two sources, I understand it. And weeding through some of those requirements makes it kind of a challenge sometime, and you may meet yourself coming if you're not careful. Well, the first thing that our attorney and contracting officer have helped us with is basically to meet the requirements for engineering services. On the federal level, we need to go out and do another advertisement. So one of the things we're working on this week and getting out is an RFP, or is that right? RFQ, a request for qualifications that we can send out, so by the 1st of January, we can select an engineer. As we tell you that, we have a good relationship with the existing engineer. The existing engineer is doing a good job, and we hope that engineer is doing well, and we've had discussions, and they understand that we have got to go through this process. So that is one of the things we're doing. The other thing that we're doing, Mr. Godwin, is one of the things we'll share with you. We have lots of what-if discussions. So you may hear that Ed Causey said, well, we're looking at doing such and such. Well, it may very well have had the conversations in trying to formulate. Our public works director down in Lynn Reynolds is working on lots of things and thinking through lots of things that we might want to do and how we might want to do it. I can assure the board that we're not going to move forward with anything specific until the board comes back and gives us authorization. One of the concerns that we have is with the supply chain issues. When we go out and get cost and estimate we could put lines in for X dollars, is that what it's going to cost? As we get down, if we get down, Ms. Lee, where we can canvass people to see if they want the line if we put it in, we want to be concerned, we want to be careful and deliberate enough that when we do that, we reasonably believe that we will have monies available to do that, because if the cost of services costs twice as much as what you think it should cost you, you're going to run out of money 50% quicker than what you thought. So we're going to try to be very careful with that, and we will give you details of what we would project. You've given us one list, and we tend to working on that, but we're going to come back and regroup and be back as quickly as we can. At some point in time, you're going to see the formulation process where we will have hit the full gate on that. The one thing that we were pleased, and sometimes we begin to request information. We have had lots of conversation with Senator Jackson's office and others over the last 2 or 3 years on projects, and we were very pleased. I can remember, some of you may not remember, but I had a conversation with the chairman, I think in Mr. Kivett, about 3 years ago, and says, we're starting on this EMS building, we really don't have adequate storage. And they finally reluctantly told me to proceed to see what we could do to find money, but they weren't interested in any debt or any county contribution for that. And they repeated that 3 or 4 times, so I sort of deduced they were fairly clear on what the expectation was, and we got it. But at the end of the day, we made the request. We got, in that particular request, we've got $2 million to build storage for the EMS, and the sheriff's office is also got some challenges with storage, and so we were able to request an extra $1 million. So we basically envisioned building one building. Lynn Reynolds has been out working, doing lots of work on trying to determine a location and where it might be and get as much preliminary work as he's done. So if you hear people having discussions, we've not yet gotten to the point we're ready to bring forward. However, the other thing for this meeting, what we're telling you, sharing with you, is basically, in my 40 years of working with construction, I've had about as good an experience with the ADW, the architecture firm that is doing this work, as I have had in my history, in my experience, and the contractor is doing a good job. However, I will point out, this is the first time I have ever worked on a project where the project architect became the project administrator and was the one that came down twice a month to oversee the construction and work out the details. So we're extremely proud of that. What we're asking the board to consider is we would like authorization, and we've had consultation with the attorney, and he thinks we can do it where we can come back and amend the existing contract with ADW include the construction of this additional facility that we would like to. So I think, Joel, what we're asking is for them to authorize us to negotiate a contract or amendment in order to proceed forward. And we'll tell you just a little bit, there is some opportunity. We think there's a possibility we actually may be able to build this building on the same site where we're building the new construction, and it may be possible to locate the building where it will be convenient for both the sheriff's office and EMS. EMS right now, the reason this is becoming a major issue, if you have a disaster, they have materials located in multiple places. So I'm literally sending entrusted employees out with trucks and trailers during the middle of a storm to go to Roseboro or wherever they are to retrieve supplies. And we would like to be able to consolidate to get as much of that material in one location as possible. That may be more information than what you want, but so I think our recommended action, if the board is to allow us to proceed with negotiations with ADW on the architectural contract.
I have one question. Is there a time constraint on spending the money?
I think there will be. I have not looked specifically.
They've not
However,
issued it yet. I'm sure there will be, but they haven't told us yet what it is.
but now let me give the state a plug. We're working on the portion of funding that they have done on that building. That has been about the most customer-friendly organization that I have ever seen in trying to work with you and help you. And they're even giving us an extension on that because we won't quite meet the original deadline. So if there is a challenge with the timeline, I anticipate that we'll be able to work with the state to get that amended.
Any other questions? Your motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve the resolution or authorize the execution and amendment to the county's contract with the architect.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Crosby, we're getting our money's worth out of you tonight. We need to talk about the salary survey review.
Yes, ma'am. This one actually may take a few minutes. There are two reasons for my coming down to the podium to talk about this. Maybe actually there's maybe three. Number one, it may take a few minutes to go through this, and if I'm in a position where you can hear me, it may be easier to respond to questions. Secondly, my partner in crime over here, Miss Nancy Dillman, has no voice. And when we had prepared this, we were going to do a tag team match of her doing part of the information and I was going to do part of the information. So the other reason for my being down here is when I miscue, she's going to come up and whisper in my ear what I have misspoke or what I have left out, so that will help us. I think Ms. Holder has passed you out the packets or the survey, which is information. In the packet that you have three attachments to the evaluation or the summary that I've provided. Attachment one is the proposal that was approved by the board in October 18th of 2021. The second attachment is the data collected by Human Resources as a part of the internal salary study. And the third part is the copy of the proposed market study to be completed by Baker Tilly. And we'll talk about each of those as we get into it. What Mrs. Dillman was going to do was she was going to talk to you about the assimilation of data that we got for the study. And I think the first thing, if you will thumb over and find attachment one, which is about 6 pages over, it is important that we remind, and it may be just as helpful for this group, Mr. Kivett, that is listening to understand as much as the board. Because we had a limited target, Ms. Lee, on what we were working. If you look down on number one, is we wanted to complete an internal salary evaluation for all of the departments. the evaluation will consider only the initial salaries for entry level of all positions. This will not include any reclassifications, time and grade adjustments, or such. In addition, the final recommendation will seek to resolve any discrepancies between similar grades in the sheriff's office and detention center created by the recent requests to adjust. And then the second thing is to revise and update the original market study, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But the proposal we had sent out in the fall, quite frankly, there's so many people getting market studies right now, we couldn't find anybody that would even talk to us before late next spring. And so we have come back and reformulated, and by putting it out there for next July, you'll see that we got a number of offers and people that would work with us. So that's sort of the background of where we are, and particularly for our employees, we want them to understand what the target was and what we were doing within the scope of this. If you will look over at the next sheet and find attachment 2. I will also tell you, I'll give you my editorial comment. I would be foolhardy to suggest to you that I had worked more on this than Mrs. Stillman. She has basically devoted prime time for about 2 months doing a significant effort on this. I will tell you that from my time, I have spent more time on questions related to this kind of stuff since July than I have done in the previous 11 years since I've been here. So I'm hoping at some point in time to get in a position where we can work on a few other things other than market studies, but that does not discount the importance of what we have done. If you will look, the other thing that I will tell you is if you're looking, and basically what we have done is we have selected as our market all of the 8 contiguous counties to Sampson County. I will tell you that when we first started this and she assimilated the information, we ran all kinds of samples of what counties we wanted to compare to and create target. Well, any way that you look at it, when it comes down to it, somebody can always come in and argue that we were picking and choosing, and says, no, we need to come back and make this review clean. And so try to come up with criteria for which we hope nobody can argue. Now, I can't tell you that there might not be a better way to do it, but I can tell you that this is a reasonable way to do it, and we have included all of the 8 counties in our area. Okay? So if you look at the attachment you've got before, what she has done on the left side is all of the positions in the county are graded, okay? And the lowest grade that you will see on here is a 57, and there are graded positions that go all the way up to 89. And so those are the grades. And Mrs. Dillman has gone through and worked with each county or tried to assimilate information on what the entry-level job salaries would be in each county. When you're doing this, you've got to keep into account a couple of things. Number one, all positions don't match up exactly, so at some point in time, there's a little bit of leeway that you've got. And sometimes, if you're looking across this sheet, you will see that there were blanks. And that meant that we could not find comparable positions in that county or ones that we could grade out to compare. And we have simply just reported what the findings are. So that is the way. Now, we had sent you, does anybody have any particular questions in trying to look at the data to see what it tells you? One of the points I need to share with you is number one, for example, look at the first page. If you go down under grade 63 and look at a detention officer 63 and go over to the far right-hand side and you see in yellow, it's the 8.91%. This tells you that our salaries for beginning on average are 8.91% lower than the average of the market. However, you have come back, and in October, you approved a 10% increase in salary for the detention officers. So that 10% essentially eliminates the 8.91%, okay? So that. The other thing, when you're looking at this, is if you're looking at the percentage of being over or under, we are also, because of the graciousness of this board, going to send all employees a bonus, I think it's early next week. Is that right? Friday. That is 2.1% of their salary. That is not included. So some of the positions that are closed, for example, if you saw one like the position that says it's minus 1.1/3, well, shoot, that would be above. If you saw one that was 0.92, you add the 2% to it, and basically that position is even with the board. However, as you're looking at this, somebody says, I still think they're off. Well, I'm not saying they're not, because we've not considered any reclassifications of positions. We've not considered time and grade. What we have considered is we've done a comparison to the entry level of positions. Because our discussion back in the summer, as you will recall, is we are having an inability to recruit. And so that is a legitimate reason, and then we want to maintain the people. So a lot of what this study is doing is it is evaluating and dealing with the recruitment side. Okay? Questions or comments? Does anybody have any more specific questions on this? This is important, and I'm willing to spend as little or as much time.
I don't have any questions because I've looked this thing over and we've discussed it.
Okay.
So I don't have any questions. Does anyone else?
Well, let's go back in order, and particularly for my employees that are present here, it may be helpful to make sure bring us up to date on the background of how we do things and why, because quite frankly, Nancy and I work with it every day, and sometimes if we're not careful, we've got to go back to look at resolutions and see what it was we were supposed to do in order. So let's go back to the front page of your packet, and I want to review very briefly the background for this. In July, or in the budget for this year, the board approved a 5% COLA for all employees. In the budget message in 2021, we stated that our goal was to actually do a 2.1% bonus in December, and that is the one time we deviated and used a little bit of the monies that had came to us. The idea behind that is once we did the 7.1%, if we're looking at the last market study, we're feeling like we have caught up with the COLAs that we were behind up until that period of time. Nothing in that has factored in the cost of living for this year that I understand could be as 6% or greater, and that can change, but the last I saw is we were headed toward like 6.1%. We also included $500,000 in that budget to help employees move along their grade scale, and the goal was, from the original market study, was to get everybody to midpoint in 10 years. We have not done that. We included $500,000, and I think, David, when we were doing the first budget, I think even after we did what we did, we determined we were about $2 million off.
Yes.
If you flip the page, number 4, the above approvals amount to nearly a 10% increase in salary for many of our employees. Vast majority of you employees are extremely appreciative of the demonstrated efforts to acknowledge their importance. We also advised during the budget deliberations that we would continue reviewing financial compensation for departments, several at the time. We proposed to begin looking at the Sheriff's Department and EMS. We plan to take a careful and deliberative approach. However, the first circumstance that hit us is the Sheriff's Department was having a tremendous challenge with recruitment of detention officers, and we had a lot of discussions, and several have asked us to come back and look at the detention officers to see if we needed to make some adjustment to relative recruiting. I will tell you that was a reasonable request. And we came back, and that's when we recommended the 10% increase. However, whenever we are doing specialized decisions with staff and salaries, it's incumbent upon us to understand the system and to know if that is creating unintended consequences. And for example, I won't say that with department heads we have done it, and if it occurs and there's a problem, it's my responsibility to talk to anybody that has a question to explain the rationale of what we were doing. However, pretty quick after doing that, there was a lot of concern expressed about the differences between the then salaries of the detention officers versus the sheriff, which we kind of understood those questions and were willing to take another look. The other thing that came up at the same time is when we had the original approval done, the board directed us to look at the detention, and we were going to go ahead and do the short-term market study. Well, at that point in time, the first request that Ms. Dillman sent out, we didn't get any takers, and when she started calling to inquire why, everybody said that they were full up and it would be late in the spring before we could do anything. So at that point in time, we realized that we were dead in the water. If you look at number 9, I did the assimilation. I was saying Mrs. Dillman, when this presentation was prepared, this is when we thought Ms. Dillman was going to be making it. So that is what I have done. Look at number 10. From talking with you, it's our understanding that you desire to have a salary package that fairly compensates all our employees and will attract new talent. Some have indicated that you would like Sampson County to be the go-to location for employment in our region. Human Resources and Administration are committed to assisting the commissioners in making recommendations that are consistent for all employees. With the pressure on vacant positions throughout the county, we point out that salary in and of itself will not resolve all employment vacancies here or anywhere else. This is must for all to understand. What we're saying, Madam Chair, is with what we hope that you will do based on the recommendations, I can't guarantee you that's going to solve all of the challenges that we have. Without effective recruitment, training, and the public's understanding, many of these challenges will be difficult to eliminate. It is also incumbent upon all managers to ensure that the best possible organizational structure is in place and that day-to-day operations are effective in growing and developing the workflows. Salary evaluation needs to be ongoing. Our salary survey is a good tool. However, the functions of many jobs may vary from county to county because of needs. These differences are not factored in. All the information assimilated should provide helpful background if you choose to do a market study. And I point out in number 17, the 2.1% salary bonus to be paid in December is not included in our assimilated data. First thing I want to share with you are the general findings, and there's 3. 1, for the most part, our salaries are generally close to the average for the 8 counties. Number 2, once you move away from the detention officers, we found no general disparity that significantly separates the sheriff's office from the needs of other county departments. We do acknowledge that we will have across the board's needs. We're not telling you that any department doesn't have challenges. We're telling you that once we've dealt with the detention, we don't recognize a disparity that's any more significant in one place than it is in another. However, in those odd deals, if you agree to go with the market study, hopefully we will resolve those. Options that are offered for consideration. Number 1, a 5% increase in salaries, including fringes, will cost $1,395,664 annually. If you decide to go with that and implement in January or whenever, then that would be half of that for the next 6 months. A 3% increase in salaries, including fringes, will cost $840,000. A 2% increase in salaries, including fringes, will cost $562,780, okay? All right, and there's a few caveats that we have included with the calculations. Each of the options above include raising a few positions in grades 57 and 58 to pay grade 61. We're basically saying the 57 and 58 are on the low side. We're going to eliminate those and lump those into 61. Grade 57 has a minimum salary of $11.30 an hour, and grade 58 has a minimum salary of $11.85. Grade 61 begins at $1,373. Each of the above also includes increasing the IT director's salary by $7,000. We also recommend that a comprehensive market study included in the proposal approved on October 18th, 2021 be authorized to begin in July of 2022. We recommend the county contract with Baker Tilly to complete a market survey, update and analysis, job evaluation, preparation of updates to the compensation plan, and a preparation of a summary report at a cost of $29,150, plus out-of-pocket expenses such as travel, copying, et cetera, not to exceed $1,500. And staff came back and we want to add an additional $7,500 for contingency. With the questions and concerns that we have expressed, I can promise you that there will be questions that come up that we have not thought about or considered that we need to figure out how to include and try to get that ferreted out. Look at the comment. Regardless of which percentage you choose to approve, we believe that it is imperative that we also approve the proposal for a market study to begin in July of 2022. As stated, our review is limited in scope. It does not consider potential reclassifications, time and grade, any evaluations of benefits, etc. In addition, after your approval of the appropriate recommendation, we further recommend that we hit the pause button and wait until the market study is completed to resolve any outstanding questions or concerns. We acknowledge that there will be questions. Okay? Number 5, we recommend that the detention officer 10% salary that you did as temporary increase be made permanent. They are not included in any of the proposed salary increases. All right, we are getting ready to give you 3 recommendations of which we hope you will choose 2, okay? And I'm going to go through the recommendations, but I'll tell you in advance. No, I'll wait till I get there. Recommendation number 1, we recommend that the BOC approve a 5% salary increase for all employees plus options 4 and 5 above. Note, in selecting this recommendation, the BOC is working to establish Sampson County as the go-to place for employment in the region. In addition, this recommendation should alleviate some of the concerns regarding potential or perceived disparities in salaries amongst the detention officers and deputies. This is one of the goals of the previous directive. Okay, recommendation number 2, but keep in mind, options 4 and 5 are the market study, and number 5 is making the detention salaries, the 10% increase permanent. Recommendation number 2, we recommend that the BOC approve a 2% salary increase for all employees plus options 4 and 5 above. This is the recommendation if the goal of the BOC is to maintain our competitive position in the region and demonstrate through all actions taken to date that all employees are valued. So we are giving you 2 choices to do that. Proposal number 3 is a little bit different, and I'm going to try to explain this as best I can. Don't want to pick on anybody, but we have as archaic a system for paying employees as anything you have ever seen, okay? Employees, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, employees, as I understand it, they fill out a timesheet on the 15th of month of what they're going to do all month. And so they send it in for us to process and get them a paycheck on the 25th. And so when we pay every employee in this county on the 25th, we're doing it based on what has been projected that they're going to work for the 15th to the 25th, plus the 25th through the rest of the month.
Yeah, that's not quite right.
Explain, correct.
Okay, we pay on the 25th of every month for the entire month. Department heads fill out a payroll authorization on or about the 15th that says if all my employees are going to work throughout the entire month. So what happens routinely, well, not really routinely, but what has happened and what will continue to happen is we might have employees that leave on the 26th of the month and they've already been paid, so we've got to collect their money back. Now, all employees turn in a timesheet after they've worked for the previous month that tell us they've worked, so we know how to record any vacation or sick time. But what we want to alleviate, what HR wants to alleviate through this proposal is we want to be able to pay our employees after they have worked. And part of that is going to include giving the employees in advance, pay them within two, if we started it in January, we'd pay them first 2 weeks of January, then we'd pay them again close to the end of January. And then we would be on a cycle where we paid them within 2 weeks after the month end and we got their timesheet. So we knew they actually worked the whole month and we wouldn't be looking to collect money back from people. So this will save everybody it'll save us money. It'll save everybody a lot of heartache for not having to pay us back when we've overpaid them because they either did not have vacation time or sick time, or they actually quit and left the county and we had to go track them down to find the money. So what we're gonna get to is employees right now get a check on the 25th of the month, and the 25th of the month, which is a month later, we're gonna move that to the 15th of the month after they worked to the 15th of the next month. So there's still not gonna be more than a month between paychecks. That's what the proposal is trying to get to.
And that's what the 2-week advance.
That's what it's gonna help them so we know they're not waiting 6 weeks between paychecks, which we knew nobody could afford to do that. We know our employees couldn't afford that.
Nancy was just telling me how good a job I was doing. That was what you were. We're going to eliminate confusion, and I purposely messed that up because I wanted to give David an opportunity to demonstrate he was participating with me. Help me see if I've got my example right. So if you were to approve something in January, everybody would get the January salary on the 25th as we normally do it. The salary for February would then be paid on March the 15th. After we go through, we would just come into mid-February and do the 2-week advance to make sure that nobody was going more than 4 weeks without a check. And Nancy's comment, making sure, was this just creates confusion and accruals for everybody, and we think there will be long-term benefits for everybody if we get this system enacted in a little bit better fashion. Is that a fair assessment? Okay. Doing my job, the one thing I wanted to include on this is the anticipated additional budget impact for 2022. Mr. Godwin, when you approve a budget, I'm going to tell you how I approach it, and I don't have David's knowledge or expertise by any means, but I will tell you how I do it, and I do it basically like I do my own budgeting. When you approve a budget in July, or when you did it in July, I start out and says, that's fixed. I'm assuming that that's going to be my baseline probably for the next budget, okay? And so from that point forward, I start considering everything that could be a savings or everything that could be an additional cost. For example, if you recall, we came back in September or October and we approved 6 new paramedics to come on board, okay? Right then, that told me that I had $450,000 of additional expenses in the next budget that we had to consider. We also, we did not purchase it, but we also stated that we will probably, in addition to the regular 2 ambulances that we pay, we're going to have to add another one. So that's about another $275,000. And if you look at the additional budget impacts, I have gone through and given you a list of the things that we know today could be different that include, for example, we originally said that the 2.1% bonus is a one-time deal. Because of the COLAs, our goal would be to make that permanent in the next budget. However, that is to be approved. We've talked about the county's contribution to retirement is going to change and cost us much. We know that health insurance, as previously discussed, will increase for both the county and the employees. The CPI for 2022 has not been determined just yet, and that's how we usually figure the cost of livings. And right now, we're expecting, David, that to come in at 6% or above. The legislature has just revised legislation to prohibit counties from deferring retirement contributions for new employees for the first 6 months of employment. Again, we have pretty good turnover in some of the departments, and that can be an expense. The 5-year plan for EMS has several needed staff positions for 2022. One that we do not have a handle on is number 9. The recent census reflected a decrease in population for Sampson County. We do not know what effect the loss of population will have on per capita sales tax distributions. We have done extremely well, David, the last 2 years on sales tax?
Yes, we have.
Okay, if that continues, life is lovely. At some point in time, you begin to think, is that going to begin to taper off? And we not in a position to project revenues. Okay, from our standpoint, we are making the recommendation, but at the same time, we're pointing out those things that we know right now could be a challenge, and I would like for my department heads who are present to also understand in advance some of the challenges we will be facing as we get into the budget. Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation, and I'm prepared to respond to any questions or comments that the board may have.
I think probably one of the most important things we'll do tonight, if we can get this pay dates squared away. That sounds like it's mighty laborious, but any questions from anybody?
I don't have any questions, but I'd like to say and commend the staff for what they've done, the effort they put in, and the litany of information they've given us. And, you know, laying out too, what we're gonna be faced with, for revenue, the increase in that, in addition to, almost $1.4 million if we go with that 5%. It's challenging. And, so I appreciate the documentation of this information and, the effort put in, but, it sure opens our eyes to what you're gonna be faced with as county manager to deal with. And yes, I think we need to move forward, but I also think, agree with the pause button, that this needs to be settled. Whatever we approve is settled, and, we'll wait until the market study in July. If we start that, when that comes back, then we can look back into it and level the playing field, ever how that plays out.
I think staff has done a tremendous job getting everything more equitable. I would suggest we look at the 5% and maybe not do a COLA. Not entertain the idea of doing a COLA until we've done the market study and find out where we need to be.
Let me repeat, you're saying go with recommendation 1 and add to that the caveat of, for staff, you're just going ahead and advising staff not to consider any COLAs of any kind in the July budget until after the new market study is done.
I think that's a good plan, but got 4 other people up here.
Would this 5% be included in the market study, like?
Yes, it will be an existing salary at that time, yes, ma'am. Did you have, when you wanted to implement, did you include that? Do you want it effective in,
January?
that's your,
Yeah,
January's on for this.
I think so.
No COLA.
With no COLA.
in July?
The COLA amount to what percentage?
Well, right now, what you're doing is you would then be freezing the 2.1% that we hope to do in the summer, plus you're saying don't consider anything relative to the CPI for this year
Yeah.
until after the market study.
Right.
Because the market study will take all that into account.
I think we need to get the market study and get a better handle on where we are.
And keep in mind too, that July had a 5% built in to it then, is that correct?
Last year.
Yeah.
Yes,
That
sir.
was July of this past year.
Yes,
So
sir.
we're looking at about 12.
So you have done 5% this year, you've done 2%, which is 7, with the bonus, you figure in probably another % for many employees because of the movement along grade in this 5. I think you have, from my standpoint, you have been very generous to the employees relative to the constraints that you operate under.
Yeah, well, I feel that, of course, best and biggest commodity we have are our people, and we need to be fair, and of course, that's what this study has done, is provided us that information to show us where we are, and if we go with the 5%, that should get us, on average with all the contiguous counties. So it's quite I don't know, have we ever made any kind of, salary, consent like this in the past?
Well,
This magnitude?
the last market study showed that we were $3.7 million off. So we basically increased salaries for everybody for approximately $1 million a year for 4 years. The problem with that is when we did that increase, at that point in time, we were caught up with what we had done in 2015, and we were behind on COLAs and some of the step increases.
We're gonna go to almost 1.4 million this year.
So this would bring us up.
It's getting you closer. Now, keep in mind, I try to be the bearer of, I try to be as transparent as I know how to be. You've got everybody out there doing market studies, so everybody's probably going to get market studies and start implementing. So I can't tell you how our relative data is going to stack up next fall when we get the new market study.
Yeah, from my talks with other counties with the association, a lot of people, almost every one of them are doing market studies, and that's one reason we couldn't find a entity to do it. But everyone's caught in the same paradigm, and but we're talking $1.4 million increase in 1 year, unfunded, particularly at this time. Now, granted that there are some issues that the sheriff's working with that'll help, but none of that come to complete fruition at this point.
I will make one comment. One thing I didn't mention is Baker Tilly is the company, is the same company as Springstead. Okay, these are new players, and I don't know of any of the people, Susan, that are in Baker Tilly. The reason we wanted Baker Tilly to do it is a couple. Number one is they've got some information from before. Number two, they're working, I think, across the lines in Duplin County as we speak. And number three, we're currently using their reclassification system, and they will update our training on any new updates they've got for that. So those are the reasons why we made that recommendation the way that we did.
Well, I agree with, Chairperson Lee, we should go with, number one, at this time,
And with the COLA, pause on any COLA.
until we have the study. Yeah.
And,
Is that a motion?
Yeah, that's.
And are you
you
gonna
wanted to
do the,
include in that.
you're gonna do
number
the
three.
pay, moving to pay date, right?
Yeah, number three.
I would do that.
Yes.
Yeah, you can lump it, yeah, and you can lump them all together if you want to.
Yeah.
Is that everything in there now, Susan?
I've got it. I got that. What I think your motion will be is that you elect the recommendation number one, which is the 5% freezing the COLA until after the July market study is done, effective January.
Right.
Is that correct? And opting to move our pay date.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm good with all that. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? They're unanimous. Okay. Mr. Posey, can we talk about the social services director?
Why do I feel like we need to adjourn?
I know,
After spending that kind of money.
I know, it's hard.
We have two parts to this. Number one, our DSS director, Sarah Bradshaw, as we have shared with you, is going to retire as of December 31st. The first thing that we're asking you to do, and I'll get Joel to help me if I got a challenge with what I'm doing, it is basically the health director, the way we've done the consolidation, and the DSS director come under the directive of the county commissioners. However, what y'all have chosen to do is you basically have utilized me as your agent to do the performance ratings and communications and manage for you. However, if this was another department, such as EMS, Public Works, or the multiple other, those come directly under my purview. These two positions are almost under my purview, but it's under my purview with the guidance of the Board of Commissioners. So in order to do an interim, that I would need we need the vote of the commissioners. Mrs. Field is the deputy director. She's worked 27 or 28 years. Her entire experience has been in the Department of Social Services, and she has worked as the deputy for, I won't say at least 2 years, if not 3 years, Mrs. Dillman. So she does come with experience. So she would be our recommendation for the interim director, and we also recommend that you allow us to go through with the professional development. It is development associates for the assessment of candidates for the new position. I would tell you, if Stephen Barrington and Rick Sauer were not in the room, I would talk about how good a candidates we got from the last process. But since they are here, I'm not going to brag too much on how good development associates did with getting us good candidates. But anyway, we spin this out. We have had some success with this, and we would encourage the board. And I think the cost on that, Susan, was $22,000.
Let's see if I can find it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For
$22,000, yes, sir.
And I'm available to answer any questions.
Questions, anybody? I move that we appoint Lynn Fields as interim director and authorize staff to enter a contract with Development Associates for assessment services. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. All right, now we want to talk about the OSHA COVID vaccination and testing emergency temporary standard. Ed and Joel.
I will start and let Joel fill in the things. Madam Chair, sometimes your staff has to tell you where you're not keeping up with what needs to be done. I was all in for the freeze on the implementation of the vaccine mandate. And it probably took 2 sessions with the county attorney, Mrs. Dillman, for me to recognize that we had the reprieve on the actual mandate of doing vaccinations, but we did not have a reprieve on the policy. And the information we have that sort of tells you that you can be fined and have some pretty severe penalties for not having a plan in place. So we're asking the board to come in and approve a plan. And essentially in the plan, we are not requiring testing. For those, we're going to encourage testing, but for those that choose not to get tested, we are going to require, according to the second option of testing, that employees that choose not will have to be tested every 7 days. And I think there's some special requirements on those people that have to be tested anyway, Joel. And I think from our standpoint, and we're proposing to do this internally with the health department. And we do share with you, when this all ferrets out, if it comes to that, it's going to take additional financial resources to help the health department. Even though the supplies are basically given to us at this point in time, there still is some staff time and recording time that is involved with it. Joel, did I leave anything out? I gave a nutshell overview.
Yeah, quickly, if you'll remember, earlier this year, the federal government came out with basically 3 separate policies relative to this. The first is the CMS vaccine mandate that applies to Medicaid and Medicare reimbursed healthcare facilities. There is no test out option for that. The indication, and I will caution everyone that this is a very complicated and very fluid process. The preliminary indication that we have right now is that that likely does not apply to any of our employees in aging, in the health department, in EMS. But again, that is a fluid and complicated situation. There's another federal contractor mandate, which we won't get into any detail tonight. There's also the OSHA ETS, which applies to businesses with 100 or more employees. Now, the OSHA ETS doesn't apply to local governments, but North Carolina is part of an agreement where the North Carolina OSH, the Occupational Safety Agency here, has to adopt a requirement as strict as the OSHA ETS. Now, my understanding is that There are no plans to do that until the litigation that you've heard about that's working its way through the federal courts gets resolved. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals issued a stay, which is still in place, enjoining OSHA from enforcing the 100-employee vaccination and testing policy. That's multi-district litigation, so by law recently, basically they select almost out of a hat which Federal Circuit Court of Appeals is going to hear the cases. It's been moved to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. They last week, the Justice Department asked for an expedited briefing and argument schedule. They have denied that. So all of that is to say, we really don't know when the stay is going to get lifted or when it's going to get resolved. Our concern is, you know, when you have an elected board that can't just, you know, pick up the phone and all vote real quick. We wanted to put this in front of you so you could consider getting a policy in place with the understanding that this policy by its own terms does not become effective until North Carolina OSH implements its policy. So while this winds its way through the court system, we're on pause consistent with the Fifth Circuit stay. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those.
Is it going to be easy to get a plan when the courts are so fluid? I mean, to develop a plan, how effective will it be? Because
the goalposts keep moving.
Well, yeah, it's challenging. It's a concern of mine. How workable this is going to be. I don't see this getting resolved in the courts anytime soon, but you know, it's incumbent on us to take this issue to you so that you can decide how you want to play. I think I read that it's somewhere in the order of $14,000 per violation, which if somebody comes in and they're counting every person, that's 14,000, you know, that can add up.
So if we come up with a plan, does it have to be a good plan?
We tried to make it a good plan and a workable plan. We're not currently, while we're able to, we're not requiring employees who go with the testing route. They're not required to pay for the tests. The county's going to defray the cost of those tests. Those are available at the health department, or if the employee wants to use his or her own, you know, healthcare provider, they can also do that. You know, we're, you know, everyone should understand this isn't something that county administration woke up morning and decided that we wanted to do it. It's, this is something that is being imposed on us. We're trying to negotiate a very dynamic situation.
So if you come up with a plan, will we get to vote on it before it's implemented?
Oh, we have a vaccination and testing plan that's actually in your agenda materials here, okay, which essentially, you know, provides for, and this is a simplification, but, you know, employees that have not provided proof of vaccination within 60 days of implementation of the policy will do the testing option. So there's, you know, it's either vaccination or weekly testing, consistent with what OSHA is trying to enforce.
So are you saying this plan will work?
I'm saying that it's workable if cost of testing don't become prohibitive. If that becomes the case, then it will be challenging. You know, in terms of whether employees will take exception to or resist the weekly testing, you know, I can imagine that may be the case. But we're in a position where if litigation winds up determining that this is a lawful exercise of OSHA's statutorily delegated authority and we don't comply, you know, we're risking the financial viability of Sampson County government.
And it's also implied that if we don't have a plan in place, we have some potential financial liability down the road if they come in.
So if we put a plan, again, I'm gonna ask, if we come up with a plan, do we get to vote on it before it's put into action?
Well, yeah, that's what we're proposing that the board consider is there's a draft policy, I think it starts at page 49 of the agenda packet. The board could vote to adopt that tonight if it opted to do so. And again, I'll read to you from the plan. This policy becomes effective the date that the North Carolina Division of Occupational Safety and Health implements the OSHA COVID-19 vaccination and testing ETS or a requirement at least as effective as the OSHA standard. Now that's, this board passes and then later amends policies all the time. So this, this
That was
is.
my hypothetical. Suppose, as it winds its way through the court and it's litigated, the policies are less stringent than this. We could always amend this.
We can always amend this.
So so we have to have it in place, is what you're saying, or we're gonna be penalized?
The problem is we just don't know. We don't know when the Sixth Circuit could, now I'm not saying this is gonna happen, it's unlikely. The Sixth Circuit could on, January 3rd, dissolve the stay.
Right.
And then OSHA's gonna take the position that it's empowered to go out, it's gonna kick in. North Carolina OSH is then gonna adopt a rule, and you may be caught in a position where you don't have a policy and you're caught unprepared.
Okay, just for the record, enumerate for me what our policy is on the testing. If it's mandated, vaccine mandate, where are we?
So are you talking about the proposed
Not this.
The proposed policy would be that, those employees who do not provide proof of vaccination within a designated time period after the policy goes into effect would be, you can either be in the sort of the vaccine door or the weekly testing door. And again, I'm sorry.
I'll say this, I personally am opposed to all of it, because I think it's the individual's right to do what he thinks is best. Now, for what we gotta do with the county may be a little different situation, but I just think it's wrong.
I think we need
Here we are, and crucial state of things keep coming out. And if we don't do something to alleviate it, it means that all of us could be accepted no matter where we are. And I think from medical use and what we have in the county right now is helping us. But if we don't do anything where everybody can have their own choice, I think we're making a grave mistake. I have went to 3 funerals of one family because they did not receive the shot. The doctor said if they would have received the shot, 2 of them would live. 1 wouldn't, but 2 of them would live. And so we have to be sensible to how we protect not just ourselves, but how we protect others. And, even chairperson sitting beside me showed me something that I got to check into. She got a protector around her, and her handsome husband over there got one that helps them, that they don't have to wear the mask as much. But if we don't do anything, we could see family, friends disappear.
Well, I have a different opinion. I had it,
Yeah, you have it.
and I recovered, and I didn't get a shot. And they wanna tell you now that if you don't get the shot, you can still get it, but, natural immunity is, some say it's 27 times more potent than the vaccine. But it's experimental, medication is all it is. It's not a vaccine. It doesn't stop or kill the virus. A vaccine kills it. This is nothing but experimental mRNA drug. So you can take the shot and the booster and all that and still get it and pass it along to someone else, just as anyone else can. So this is not a silver bullet that's gonna stop it.
I think the thing that concerns me the most though is the liability of the county.
That's-
If that's what,
That's
That's the only thing.
That's right.
Be responsible.
That's what-
should we not have a plan and
That's right.
that, the liabilities,
I believe that too.
And I agree with that. That's what I said.
Yeah.
I agree with Commissioner Garland. We do need to adopt a plan. And by us adopting this plan, people still have a choice. Because if they don't take the shot, if they don't be tested, they go home. That's their choice to do either one. You know, we're not imposing anything on anybody, but we cannot stand around and see this disease kill up everybody in Sampson County because we don't want to wear a mask or because we don't want to take the shot. I mean, it's our job here to protect the citizens in Sampson County. And people that don't want to do it, they've got a choice. But we shouldn't make other people suffer because of what somebody else don't want to do.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly. It's not, it's the individual's right to take whatever they want. And, it's not a silver bullet. It's not gonna stop someone from getting it. People dying every day that took both shots and the booster.
That is, Commissioner gives them a choice not to take it, they just get tested. So it's a choice.
They got a choice.
Yeah.
And two, where it comes in, I agree, everyone, you've got the right to go home, but you're losing your right to feed your family. So I disagree with it.
We have a hand up.
Anyway,
Yes.
I think we're at end of the public comment period.
Our procedures would call for us to wait to a public comment.
That's right.
Thank you. But I really think we need to tend to the liability of the county. I think we need to, and I would say we adopt this is just a thought, consider adopting the policy with the caveat of amending it as, it works its way through court.
I second that.
That's good. Yeah. I second
All-
it.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. Here we go. Okay, bless Mr. Causey's heart, he gets a break here. Stephen Barrington and Joel Sterling are gonna, talk to us about selection of contractor for design build project to construct Industrial Park Road and adoption of resolution authorizing execution of contract.
If you want, I'll try to take care of it, and if you have very project-specific questions, I may defer to Mr. Barrington on those. You know, in July, the county received a $1.281 million industrial development grant fund. This is for the development of infrastructure within the Sampson Southeast Business Center, the industrial park property that the county acquired, I believe, last year, if memory serves me correctly. This will be used for the construction of a road that will service the property as well as some other infrastructure improvements on the county-owned land. We've gone with this is a different procurement process than we normally use. It's a design-build process where basically you do an RFQ like you would for an architect or an engineer, and then you hire one firm, and that firm does both the design of the project and the construction of the project. The county issued an RFQ in August and again in September to get the required number of proposals. A committee met and is recommending Barnhill as the most qualified firm to complete that project. We would ask the board to consider adopting a resolution that does two things. We're required to use the design-build process to have written criteria that we use to evaluate when that's an appropriate construction administration procedure. We have that draft policy, and also to consider authorizing the county manager to negotiate and execute a contract with Barnhill at a price not to exceed $1.281995 million, which is the amount of grant funding that the county received. I'm happy to answer any questions, or Mr. Barrington's available as well.
Any questions? All I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Could you clarify for me the motion and the second? I'm sorry. Who, the people? You made the motion and who seconded it? I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to talk about the national opioid settlement.
I'll try to be brief. You've already heard about this a lot. We executed earlier this year an MOA with, through the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners and the Attorney General's office here in North Carolina that allocated how opioid settlement funds would be divided up among the qualifying local governments. They're the big four, as they call them, which are McKesson, AmerisourceBergen, Cardinal, and then Janssen, which is a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson, have reached a settlement totaling about $26 billion to resolve all of the state and local government opioid nuisance cases that have been filed against them. North Carolina could stand to get about $750 million under the terms of that settlement. We are asking you tonight to authorize Commissioner Wooten to execute the settlement participation agreements and to authorize him and the county manager to execute any necessary settlement documents. The reason we're designating Commissioner Wooten is we were required to register our signatory many months ago for this process. We've talked to our outside counsel. They're using a DocuSign process that's nationwide. As you can imagine, that can get complicated. They're nervous about us trying to switch out that designated signatory at this point, so we would have him be the designee along with the county manager. There's a resolution to that effect. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the settlement agreements. They run about 700 pages in length, so you can get really down in the weeds on those. I will tell you that the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, our outside counsel, the North Carolina Attorney General, and myself all recommend participation in these settlement agreements.
Any questions? I move that we adopt the enclosed resolution participating in the distributor settlement and Janssen settlement and authorizing Commissioner Clark H. Wooten and the county manager to execute the settlement participation forms and any other election, release, or other documents necessary to effectuate said settlements. Do I have a second? Thank you. All in favor? Okay. And we have another public hearing
Yes, ma'am.
to name road. Susan?
Yes, ma'am. We duly advertised a public hearing as we're required to receive comments on recommendations for the naming of certain roads. And the only difference this time is that these are actually state roads, and we are required to have DOT approval. The board has certain authorities, but the DOT has to concur when they are state roads, and they have. So we are recommending that SR 1361 be named Water Treatment Road, SR 1362 is Tower Road, and then a private road, 1231, just off of Lisbon, is Hardware Lane. The committee offers that for your consideration, and I don't believe anyone has signed up to speak.
Public hearing closed. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor? Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, we're moving down to appointments. I move that we reappoint Dr. Jeffrey Bell, Casey Faircloth, and Dr. Charlotte Harrell for reappointment to the Health Advisory Board. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? I move that we appoint Barbara Faison, Gracie Ellis, and Gail Mitchell to the Advisory Board of Older Adults. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? And because of the hard work of Commissioner Godwin, I move that we appoint Eric Grubb to the Department of Social Services Board. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. That's taken care of. Okay, any question about anything on the consent agenda? Motion to accept is presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Okay, do we have representatives here for the Hog Heaven Farming, BDC Farming, and S&G Farms? Okay, I go ahead and move that we, I'll make a motion that we, assess the taxes and half the penalty and interest.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, now for the county manager's report. Do you have anything left to tell us?
It will be one thing simple, so be thinking about, I would like to have a planning session with the commissioners for 2 full days in February. So when we come back into January, we're going to establish those 2 dates. And I would recommend not doing back-to-back, but maybe a Tuesday, Thursday, or a Tuesday on 2 successive weeks.
Great.
It
Okay.
appears they will be full days.
Two full days. Is full 10 to 2 or?
How about 8:30 to 5?
Oh, my goodness. Okay, we're moving toward our public comment period. Could we have, Susan, could you read the rules for us?
Certainly. In lieu of reading them, if that's okay, Madam Chairperson, I'll review them very briefly.
Yes, please.
Because they are very long.
Just review.
Basically, we're required to have a public comment period, and the chairperson determines and announces the limit on speakers. Generally, for us lately, it's been 3 minutes. And what happens is the person comes up and identifies themselves, and I start a timer at 2 minutes. Well, the light will turn green as it starts. When there is 1 minute remaining, it will turn yellow, and then when your time is concluded, it turns red and a tone sounds. At that time, the person speaking is expected to conclude their remarks promptly. Obviously, to ensure the safety of our board, the persons are not allowed to approach the dais. Those persons who failed to register, after those who registered have spoken, the floor is open for them to request to speak, and they're given the same courtesy at the same time. Typically, we try not to exceed a 30-minute period, but I don't know that we have that many people signed up. As far as public comments go, those things that are appropriate for public comment are those things that do not include personnel, the acquisition of property, or attorney-client type privilege things. That's a synopsis of those rules, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. Our first person to sign up is Daniel Kuntz. If you'll come forward and give us your address. We obviously have your name, Daniel Kuntz.
Okay, so I'm Daniel Kuntz, and my address is 2057 Old Men's Highway. Okay, I just want to find my.
I'm gonna restart you once you.
Yeah, I wrote it down, so I wanted to make sure that I, Okay, well, I can't find it right now, so I'll just, it's okay, but I remember what I wanted to say, so thank you again for this opportunity. It's been a little while since I've been in front of you, but I wanted to let you know that I have continued to volunteer to collect water from residents in Sampson County, working along with scientists from both UNC Chapel Hill and Appalachian State University. To date, we have done over 100 water sample tests, and we're continuing to have people ask us to test their water. The results of that water testing are being finalized, and I will be happy to email a summary of the results to you. In the midst of the testing, we're still hearing residents, and this is primarily in District 4, so we've tested water as west as Autryville and as far east as Harrells. So pretty much the boundaries of most of District 4. And it continues to be, right now it's almost like a broken record. Wherever we go, it's the same problems. I don't trust my water. We have people who have been using bottled water 10, 15, 20 years. One person well, not several people, oh, you can't wash white clothes with our groundwater because it turns the white clothes brown. People complaining about a yellowish hue in their water, a smell. Now, a lot of this is due to their proximity to hog farms, poultry farms. Some of this is due to their proximity to landfills. And some other places are talking about unmarked landfills that we're still trying to investigate. But people are pointing and saying, oh, they're dumping stuff, and they're pointing to some areas that aren't showing up on the map. So we're still trying to figure out what they're talking about. But again, we know, I read the director of the EPA, Michael Regan, said that North Carolina, I think, was getting $114 million, and you have gotten $10 million for water infrastructure. So I just want to encourage you not to forget the people of District 4 when you're making your decisions about water infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Reverend Jimmy Melvin.
Good evening. Interesting hearing y'all, the professional way you transact business. I like the way the gentleman, the budget man, handled everything.
Could we get your address?
I'm Reverend Jimmy Melvin, and I live in District 4. I also pastor in the Delaware community at Mount Zion Church. And we had the happy experience a year and a half ago to be, our water was tested. I've been there 6 years. This is the beginning of the 6th year. And water had been being tested. We were right in the middle of where the fields are being sprayed. And unbeknown, the health department was testing our water for us, keeping a check on. But we finally got that nitrogen level came up, and sometimes it would go back down, but in the past, just the beginning of the COVID, the nitrogen level exceeded what it was supposed to be, and we had to the health department posted a sign in our vestibule that you could not wash your hands, you could not wash your baby, and you could flush the commode, but we had 60 days to correct the problem with the well. Well, I told my officers we don't have time to protest, because somebody come in here and we'd be sued, and there goes our little basket money. So we had to secure someone certified to do that work and register well company did it, and they happen to be one that did a church a discount. But it cost us $4,000 to correct that. We had to go down from a shallow well to 225 feet, and we didn't care that cost. And so we've been sharing that experience with and the need for county water. I live over in the area, and I'm on District 4 in the Highsmith community, 2057 Ole Miss Highway, so Lita Lee is familiar with our area. And we have the same problem over there. And we actually have a private school in our community doing a great job. And they're under restriction because they're under a shallow well. They have a certain size well and they want to expand, but they can't get a permit because you need to have public water. So there's a real need for that. And I just wanted to share that. Smithfield came and said they would love to compensate us for that, but my point was most people come to church, when they bring me a bottle of water, it's a bottle of water. Nobody hardly drinks in this little hour that we're at church. But my position was, I thought that would be hypocrisy because we corrected our problem, but my parishioners are going back to their homes and drinking the same water. And it's been amazing the stories they tell and what they have just adapted to have took a way of life, and the money that's being spent on bottled water, I'm telling you, it would make a big difference. So as I close, this is my word. When God came down to speak, to ask Cain where was his brother Abel, and Cain smoked him and said, I don't know, am I my brother's keeper? But God said to him, what have you done? His blood speaks to me from the ground. And the blood of Abel spoke to God from the ground. The blood of the people that lives have been damaged by the damage of water. What we've done as a county, we've had people have had a great livelihood. I'm not trying to beat the hog industry. I was raised on a farm. I like some turkey. I like turkey, I like chicken, I like bacon, I like all of that. But I'm saying if we have a problem, the decision may not have made on our watch, but being elected by the people and for the people. If we have an issue with the taxpayers of our county, then let's just find a way to work together and
Thank you,
resolve our
Reverend
issue.
Miller. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Okay, this looks like I wrote it. Sherman Wilson, I'm not sure about the first name. I'm sorry. They've already left. Okay, it's at the end of the public comment period, and now we have closed session, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to closed session.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
And would you like the county attorney direct to?
Please.
So the motion would be to authorize the county's insurer to make settlement of the Anthony Chavius estate wrongful death claim in the amount of $250,000, and to authorize the chair and county manager to execute any and all necessary settlement documents.
So moved. Have a second? All in favor? It's unanimous. And if that's all,
Move adjourned.
do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?